We are looking forward to diving right into our 2020 presidential election briefing. I'm excited to introduce our Executive Director, Alex Harris.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We assume that you're here because you care deeply about what's happening in this upcoming week and you want to know what in the world we've got cooking on the ground. So we have endeavored to create this event, make it very brief. We won't be before you long, but we want to give you real, intimate information about what we're seeing on the ground to keep you as up to date as possible. Some of this information we've just received minutes ago. So this is up to the moment information about what's happening on the ground across our campuses. So thank you so much for participating. Thank you for your ongoing support. We look forward to interacting with you. And I just want to give you a little bit of an understanding of what we'll be talking about tonight. So first, we're going to talk about our general work across all of our campuses, what we're seeing, what students are experiencing. Then we're going to talk about our HBCU cohort and what our HBCUs are experiencing and what they're seeing on the ground. We will talk about a little bit about our BARD litigation, and then we'll end talking about our ballot carrying endeavor. So that's just a brief overview. And at the end of that, we'll open it up for questions. And as Rachel said, please do keep yourself on mute until then. I will begin by passing the mic over to INGRID GILLIES, who is our student at Case Western University, and she'll speak a bit about the barriers that students are experiencing on the ground related to voter ID issues and long lines. I want to highlight something that I think is really important before she starts. We just found out that our students at Simpson College in Iowa are experiencing extreme voter suppression tactics. The clerk there is sending out wrong information about the precinct where they are supposed to vote. And so we're in real time helping to educate the students and make sure that they know where they actually can vote. Additionally, the students that are out of town at Simpson are being required to show additional student IDs, which is against the law. So I just want to keep you up to date about what we're experiencing in the battleground states. And now the video.
Hello, my name is Ingrid Gillies, and I'm a voting ambassador here at Case Western Reserve University through the Andrew Goodman Foundation, and I wanted to talk a little about my first time voting. So my friends and I have been very excited for this election. We've been getting ready in terms of getting our proof of residency, which took a long time because our leases were not counting here in Ohio, and we had difficulty changing our utility bills to our name instead of our parents, and also we're not getting paid. So a lot of the forms that college students are asked to have as proof of residency, we weren't able to obtain. So that was a little bit difficult. But we finally got everything figured out, and we were going on Monday to vote right after our class. So we left around 10 o'clock, and it's only like a 12-minute drive from our campus. We arrived at the Board of Elections, and the line was 3.5 blocks long. And we realized that we weren't going to have time before our next class and before my friend had to go to work. So we decided, okay, we'll go Tuesday, and we'll wake up at 6:45. We thought the Board of Elections opened at 7, but it was really a good thing that we would go at 6:45 because we ended up having to wait in line. So then Tuesday morning came around, and we left. We went and got Dunkin' Donuts. We got our food, and we got to the Board of Elections by 7:15. And there was already a line about a block long. And the Board of Elections opened at 8. So I want to say around 8:15, we got into the Board of Elections, and I was getting my ballot, and I was talking to an election official, and I asked her if it had been this busy all week, and she said for the past 2 weeks since early voting started, there had been very consistent lines. Granted, Cuyahoga County Board of Elections is in Cleveland, so it serves many different people. Well, I wanted to say I was surprised. I wasn't, because we had been leading early voting excursions through the Cecil office and the Andrew Goodman Foundation. I was talking to a coworker, and when he went on Saturday, he waited 2 hours in line with his students that he took, and that was just in the middle of the day. The sentiment on campus from students I've interacted with is that voting has been very difficult and confusing this year in terms of mail-in ballots and what is needed to go early vote. When we ended up voting, all we needed was our ID and our last 4 digits of our social security card. However, the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections website said something different. There's been a lot of confusion, and I'm very happy that Case Western has an office that is able to answer these questions, but I'm aware that all people don't have the access to resources that we provide to our students. So that is frustrating to me, but overall, it's an incredible experience. I'm so happy to just get involved, and be downtown in Cleveland, see all these people so energized and so mobilized. And it is a validation and affirmation that the work of everyone at Andrew Goodman Foundation, the work of everyone at Case Western, and the work of everyone all across the United States is paying off.
So you can hear from the ground our student who's in Ohio, what she's experiencing, the long lines and the confusion. And that's pretty consistently what we're hearing across all of our battleground states. As I noted, in Ohio and also in Iowa, we've heard the same in Florida, Pennsylvania, so on and so forth. It's been pretty outrageous. So we're helping them along the way, helping clear up confusion wherever there is confusion. Next up, we want to share a video from one of our students who is at BARD. And she's talking about our BARD victory, which is really exciting, particularly because we initially got bad news from BARD that they were going to keep their voting precinct in a place that was extremely dangerous, on a road where students had actually died, that is 3 miles from the campus, and that was not ADA compliant. So after this victory, now the precinct will be moved on campus, and students will be able to vote safely, and they'll be able to vote in a way that is really reflective of equity. If you could have seen our press release or press conference that we had last Thursday, people shared these harrowing stories of what it means to vote when you have a disability, and it was pretty powerful. So next we'll hear from SADIA SABA.
Hi, I'm SADIA SABA, and I'm one of the campus ambassadors from the Andrew Goodman Foundation at Bard College. I'm a plaintiff in a lawsuit against the Dutchess County Board of Elections in an effort to bring a polling place on campus. Now, this issue is really important to students here because Dutchess County, New York, where we're located, has a long history of intentionally discriminating against student voters. That's why generations of BARD students have advocated and organized to try to bring a polling place on campus here. St. John's Church, which has served as the polling location for years, is not ADA compliant, it's inaccessible by public transportation, and it's unable to provide a space for social distancing that's required by the COVID-19 pandemic. So together with fellow BARD students, administrators, and the Andrew Goodman Foundation, we've made formal requests and eventually filed a lawsuit to move the polling place on campus. And so we're going to continue to ensure that BARD students' voices are heard and they have equal access to the ballot.
So that was a huge victory. We're super proud of that. We've been fighting this case for a long time. And next we're going to hear from the ground in Tennessee from one of our HBCUs. So LaToria Lane is going to be speaking about her experience at TSU, where students actually had to travel from Nashville to Memphis to vote, the 3-hour drive. So we shuttled them, and they were able to tell their story and talk about the support that the Andrew Goodman Foundation provides. And the law that she's referencing in Tennessee that allows or that requires first-time voters to actually vote in person is what we're also seeing in Louisiana. So she'll talk a little bit about that law and how it's changed a bit in Tennessee. But her work at TSU is really being reverberated all across our HBCUs. So we are actually doing work with, you'll see here this picture, this is one of our students at University of District of Columbia. And she's a poll worker. So she's sitting here preparing the voting station. What's really exciting about the work that Andrew Goodman Foundation is doing across our campuses is we've recruited a ton of student poll workers. Across all of our networks, we have about 3,000 student poll workers who are working this election. And that includes now early voting time. So it's really important work and exciting work. It allows the polls to stay open, and it's really, really important. So now we're going to hear from LaToria Lane.
Hi, AGF family. I am TORIA, Tennessee State University's Campus Ambassador, and I wanted to give you a little more information on the trip we took this past weekend. On last Saturday, a bus filled with about 15 to 20 students traveled from Nashville, Tennessee to the Memphis-Shelby County area to vote. This trip was so important because in any other election, the state of Tennessee requires that first-time voters vote in person for the first time. Though this law just recently changed due to COVID-19, allowing first-time voters to request an absentee ballot as long as a copy of identification is sent along with the request, some students wanted to ensure that there was no reason for a request to be denied. It was so imperative that these students got to the polls to allow their voices to be heard, not just as individuals, but also as a university. This is the only public HBCU in the state of Tennessee, which means that our university receives government funding. If our students do not cast a ballot, the representation and advocacy needed for TSU could possibly diminish. It has been a challenging few months ensuring that as many students vote as possible, be in person or by mail. However, I believe we have gotten students truly fired up about casting their ballot and taking their power back.
That's right. We sure have. So right now, as we are really getting students revved up and in this moment, making sure they're staying engaged and excited, some of them are facing bad weather. We've heard from our students at Prairie View and Alabama A&M. We've heard from students at Dillard and North Carolina A&T that they're all experiencing bad weather simultaneously. So they had all of these plans to march to the polls. Many of them have done it even in rain. They had live DJs, they've had food trucks. They're keeping people super excited, super high energy, making sure that they know that they have to vote no matter what, no matter how long the lines. So our shuttles have taken students to polling precincts, and they've had to wait there all day long. Some of our students went to Alabama A&M courthouse where they were supposed to be voting, and the clerk told them that they were uninvited. So they were sent home. And then we had to turn that around and make sure that they knew that, yes, they could vote, and that's where they're supposed to vote, and that was their right. So as I said before, we're there at every turn, and everything that they're experiencing, we're getting up to the minute updates, and we're making sure that we can fight to make sure that they are able to have their vote heard. Next, we're going to hear from Elle Bromberg, who's going to talk about our vote curing and ballot curing process. And this is something that we're super proud about. Not only are we doing it in key battleground states, but we're also making it available for any student who has any voting issue through My Vote Everywhere.
My name is Yael Bromberg. I'm Chief Counsel for Voting Rights with the Andrew Goodman Foundation. This year, we launched an innovative vote-by-mail notification and cure program tailored for youth voters in key states. The reason that we focus on this effort is because we know that vote-by-mail ballots cast by young people, unfortunately, are rejected at disproportionate rates compared to other age cohorts and compared to other groups of voters. We piloted the program in Wisconsin, and then we spread it to North Carolina and Florida through direct voter outreach. The direct outreach has been really a beautiful thing. We recruited over 40 attorneys from the private bar and law students from a range of law schools, including Rutgers Law, Georgetown Law, Yale, San Diego, Stanford, the list goes on. And we've been able to facilitate peer-to-peer outreach to young voters in key states, in Florida, Iowa, and North Carolina. What we're hearing from the field is that often this is the first time that young voters are hearing that there's an issue with their vote-by-mail ballots. So we're not only providing unique notification, but also key resources to help voters cure their ballots. And they're so supportive to hear from us, particularly because we have a nonpartisan voice and we have a youth-centered voice. We spread the program through our unique feature on our My Vote Everywhere portal to reach voters in Florida, Georgia, and Michigan. And what we expect at the end of this is that we hopefully will have reached nearly 200,000 young voters age 18 to 25 in key districts, in key states where we know that young people have a particularly high influence this election cycle.
Yeah, so as you can see, we're doing it in a very holistic way. Not only are we doing legal outreach and vote ballot curing, not only are we shuttling students in key battleground states, but we're also aggressively helping HBCU students get vital resources in a really important time. So this is just a brief overview of what we're doing on the ground. We have a lot of our teammates here on the call. We want to open the floor up. But first, I want to introduce Maxim Thorne, who's our managing director, who has been really aggressively driving fundraising efforts. In the last month, we've actually brought in a record-breaking amount of funds toward all of these activities, but we still have a little delta, which we'll talk about really briefly now.
Thank you, Alex. Good evening, everyone. It's really exciting. And first, thank you all for joining. I know this is, you're all so busy and you've seen all the work that we're doing around the country. And I'm really pleased that a number of you have given just recently to the important efforts that we have underway across these various states. You can share the slide. So as you know, and I've been telling everyone, we have had to increase our budget for this emergency, for the things that you've heard, which are ballot curing and the HBCU emergency COVID-19 cohort. We had about a budget for each of them, which you'll see on the first row, totaling about $379,000. I am so thrilled to say that for the ballot curing project, we raised about $157,000. And for the HBCU emergency cohort, we raised $132,000. And so in each of those categories, we have a relatively small gap that allows us to do everything that we've said and really carry this to its full potential for November 3rd. You can take off the slide now, Elise. So here's what I want to say to everyone. The budgets that we presented were best skeletal. And I'm happy to say that we were really fortunate that one of the products that you heard about that is not included in that budget is the way that we enhanced the way that people in Florida, Georgia, and Michigan can cure their ballots remotely without ever having to go into an office. And that was going to be a very hefty price, additional cost to this budget. And we were saved that because our foundation picked up that cost. So thank you to that anonymous foundation who did that. And we were also able to do two other things that increase the budget slightly, that makes students know what we're doing. We think this is a tremendous opportunity, not only for this election, but going forward. And so I appeal to you, Elise, you put a slide up one more time. It's very short. We have still to reach our goal for this emergency intervention, both the ballot curing as well as the HBCU cohort that desperately need our help. This is not going to offset our regular budget, where we still have to meet those demands by the end of December. So once again, we have a gap of $27,000 for the ballot curing project, and then $62,000 to really help build capacity in the for the HBCU emergency cohort. I want to mention that right now I've been notified that Sylvia and David Goodman, who have been so amazing with their time and their talent and their treasure to this organization, has just made a $10,000 donation. Thank you, David and Sylvia. You can remove the slide now, and thank you all. I will, if I have time later, I will call out some of you that I know are here that have been amazing in contributing. I will just mention one. Kirsten, you are wonderful for your passion to racial justice and to civil rights, and your incredible gift to us of $25,000 from your foundation is so appreciated. Thanks.
So this, like I said, we're only going to be before you a little amount of time. We've been really mindful that we have a lot to do and you have to go to bed. So we just want to open the floor briefly for any questions you have. We can update you. and then we'll get back to work. All right. So Nia, I see your question about, you want to know a little bit more about the remote ballot carrying project. I'll give you a brief overview and then I'll pass it to Yael. So the way that we've been doing ballot carrying started really in Wisconsin with our pilot. And so we started out the ballot carrying project by reaching out to the clerk in Wisconsin and saying, hey, we have a great relationship. We've been working well with you through the years. Would you send us data about ballots that were rejected over the past, since the vote by mail ballot went out in September 17th? And she said, sure. So she started sending us data every Friday for us to match against the student registrar. And then we were able to see who was rejected so that we could reach out to them and say, hey, your ballot was rejected. You have until this time to cure your ballot. If you have any issues, you can reach out to us specifically. And that's how it started. Then we opened that up across the entire state of Wisconsin. And then after that, we said, okay, we've got something here. Let's try in some other states. So we went to North Carolina. And in order to do it as quickly as possible, we actually purchased that data in order to make sure that we could reach out directly to the people whose ballots were rejected in North Carolina by writing them an email and giving them a ton of information about who they can call, what their rights are, how long they have. And then we thought, okay, let's take this a step further. So that was what you saw in Yael's video, where we actually are putting a button on our My Vote Everywhere page where people can click into it and they can first track their ballot to see if it was rejected. And then if it was, then they can cure their ballot with us on our page. So it's super exciting. We're able to do this in North Carolina and Michigan and Georgia, and all because we have generous donors who care a lot about those specific states, and we're able to purchase that data. We also, if you click on that button and you're not from one of those targeted states, you can still say, hey, my ballot was rejected, I need help curing it, can you help me? And we will. So we're able to do this for anyone and give that kind of intimate person-to-person support.
Yeah, so just adding a little bit to that, to what Alex offered, it's really great that we can offer this central portal, for example, that voters can, sorry for the little, that voters can go, they can actually go into this portal that's unique through My Vote Everywhere, click on the college or state that they're affiliated with, and also go and track their ballot. So that if there's any question about the validity of their ballot or where it might be in the system, we're creating kind of a one-stop shop for them to check the ballot and then to cure the ballot through a signature addition to it. And then through the direct call program that I mentioned, we also have the data specifically for young people who we know have to cure their ballot, right? Like, and I get the data updated almost daily, and then we have the volunteers, attorneys, and law students directly call. And so that's really kind of peer-to-peer. We have all of the information in front of us. So it actually, we have a lot to offer those individuals also through this one-on-one contact. And we work and walk with them through the process. And, they really appreciate hearing from us. Like in the field, I get the feedback. They love that we're nonpartisan. They love that it's youth law students that are calling them as well. It doesn't sound like a pitch, like a partisan call would do. And I know for a fact that in North Carolina, we're the only nonpartisan group doing this type of tailored activity. And quite frankly, I haven't really heard much of peer-to-peer youth organizations focusing in the same way that we're doing. So we know that what we're doing is really unique and really tailored, and we can even add to that expansion beyond the direct outreach to do when we take advantage of the digital platform as well.
And the digital work that Alex and Yael are talking about are the two major investments that we made for these emergency interventions. It was how we advanced using texting for young people. As all of you know who have young people in your life, they don't email, they don't pick up the phone, they don't call you by phone, they text. And so we've had to invest heavily in texting for Florida, for Wisconsin, for Georgia, for North Carolina, and throughout the battleground states. And that was the way in which we also customized what you saw in the video, our portal that gets to how you track your ballot and how you cure your ballot. And it is also how we were able to get this ballot curing technology, which is not cheap. But as I mentioned, it was supported by a foundation that allows us for the 3 states that allow you to cure a ballot if there's signature problems, Michigan, Georgia, and Florida. That is going forward. So this is an emergency, but going forward, what a base this has set up for us to do this kind of work around the country to help young students protect their rights to vote.
Yeah. And so we're just 3 minutes out. Are there any more questions? You have the ability to unmute yourself, or you can drop your question in the chat.
Well, so I'll take while we're waiting. And by the way, you could just wave your hands and we'll call on you. David Sobel, thank you for your donation. Actually, your multiple donations this year to advance our work. Cheryl Cardenagash, you are an inspiration and joining us from LA, and thank you for your donations. We have board members who have anchored our work not only this year in this emergency, but throughout the many years of the work that leads us to be able to do the kind of laser-focused, targeted work that we can help in the crisis that we find ourselves in, especially relating to student voting. Janet Dordwell, your leadership for decades, not generations, for decades in civil rights is really appreciated, and thank you. And Roberta Price, thank you. I can go down the entire list. You all know how important your financial contributions is to allow us to advance this work. And we need to reach this gap, and we really appreciate your efforts.
And so then the question in the chat is, from Roberta, is this ballot curing just for the selection? And the answer is no. Here's the amazing thing, Roberta, that I really want to share. I probably should have said it from the beginning. We literally put this together in weeks. We saw a gap, we filled it, and that was it. We knew that this vote by mail issue was going to cause a lot of confusion, that people were getting ballots rejected just between us. My experience with voting by mail was harrowing. I didn't get my ballot. I had to go and demand it. It's still not showing up as received, even though I handed to them in person. It was a mess. In fact, we're writing about it. We're getting an op-ed published about it. It's been a mess. And so we know that if a Harvard-educated lawyer who's leading an organization about democracy can't even vote by mail, then certainly our students are experiencing a lot of voter suppression. We want to support them. So we put this together with Yael's help, who has been working tirelessly around the clock. I mean, you see her with her baby. She's here, she's fighting crime, she's fighting Bard's case and anything else all around the country. I mean, it's outrageous. And so we did this very quickly. We used our organizing backgrounds, we used our law backgrounds, we put our heads together. We put together this amazing ability to help people in North Carolina and Florida and Michigan and Wisconsin really get their ballots cured. But other donors have said, okay, can you do this, up to scale? What about down the road? What about next year? What about, in other elections? What about when we're talking about, the Senate elections and everything else? Can you help us do this? And also, can we think about ways to be more creative in states like Pennsylvania, which have been very tricky? Maxim loves to talk about this, and it's really true, that the ability to cure in Pennsylvania is kind of a fiction because they don't really let you know until election day, and then the deadline is election day to cure. So how can we get more creative in the future to make a difference in these places that are making it very, very difficult to vote by mail? We obviously support vote by mail. We think that it's the right thing to do, but how can we make sure that it's as equitable as possible, especially for young people who are very, very targeted by these types of suppressive tactics?
Roberta, just to finish, so your question, so we will purchase a lot. As I mentioned, we purchased this for Florida, Georgia, and Michigan. Imagine if we could purchase what we did for all of the 9 battleground states that we are in, or all of the 26 states in Washington, D.C. we are in, we're reaching 1.5 million students. We had access to purchase 1.2 million cell phone numbers. That's just a drop in the bucket of the 20 million eligible students who can vote this year. So there's a lot we could do if we got the kind of investment that you and everyone else is able to do. I do want to make a shout out to Sarah Zimmerman, who hosted a fantastic fundraiser for us in San Francisco and the Northern California area. Thank you, Sarah.
My pleasure. I adore this foundation and your work, and I was putting in the chat that I'm tearing up tonight because you really do give us hope right now that we need.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much, and for your support. You've been so great to us. So we are going to keep fighting. We're not stopping. We are working so hard. We've got everyone on this call from every department in our organization showing up because they want to share the stories. They want to share what we're experiencing on the ground. We'll keep you updated. We're actually doing something really awesome, which is having a link for students to share their stories. It's a hero stories link from the ground, real time, what they're experiencing, sharing pictures, sharing video, making sure that we have that information we can share back out with you. On election day, we also are going to have a boiler Zoom instead of a war room, where we're going to work with organizations across the space to real time help students as they're navigating these issues. We're also pointing them toward the hotline. We've got holistic support. We'll be there. We'll be there no matter the outcome. We'll be there after the election, no matter the outcome, making sure that our students are safe and making sure that the results of the election are accepted. So anyway, thank you for your time. We've gone 3 minutes over, but I'm a stickler for it, so we're gonna cut it. But please be in touch. Thank you so much for your donations and support. We love you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.